Hey,
How,
I'm here. Can you hear me?
yeah, how are you, Spider?
I'm doing good. I'm doing
Are
good.
you a tarantula today
You know what? I
or a
changed
black
my
widow?
let's go with the widow because I
All
don't
right.
know what the market's looking like at this point.
Okay, so go ahead and share your screen, buddy.
All right. 1 second. How do you do that again? Share right in the middle. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. So it's that green box.
I think Steve has to stop sharing.
Oh, okay.
It
Then,
says I can't start screen share unless.
okay. Then I'll take it, and then I'll.
There we go. Okay.
You got it?
Yep.
Okay. There you are.
Alrighty. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, got it. All
Okay,
right. So we're
perfect.
going to
So,
be talking about raindrops today.
yeah, the reason why we are going to talk about raindrops is simply because there was an interesting raindrop that formed on all the major broad market ETFs yesterday, which signaled possibly a more selling event today. So I'm going to go over just raindrops, introduce them really quickly, and then go over a couple examples from yesterday where it showed sellers were definitely in control.
How'd
So
that Thanksgiving pattern work out for you on comparing it to 2016 on Thanksgiving?
so honestly, I have not looked at charts in a while, so I would need to go back and kind of,
No, I mean, when I was with you, it's only a week ago.
yeah, I just haven't looked at the chart. So
Oh, okay.
as far as that goes, right now,
It was wrong. So
it
you don't even have to go back.
okay.
All right.
I still think the market is kind of just resetting at the moment.
Yeah.
There's a ton of gaps below. It looks like Swiss cheese below. So,
Yeah.
I think it was time for a little bit of a correction. But just to introduce TrendSpider real quickly, for those that have not heard of us, we are a charting platform. So we have the ability to do technical analysis, but also innovate the way technical analysis is done. One of these, the raindrops charts being one of those. And so there's really two parts of the raindrop. You've got your bullish raindrop here, which I'll dissect really quickly. You can see here on the left side, this bar, instead
Yeah.
of the open, this is the VWAP for the first half of the period.
And explain what VWAP is.
The volume weighted average price. So if you look at, all of the volume over that particular period, in this case, let's say that this is a daily candle, then
Okay.
essentially the left side is the first half of the day's volume weighted average price. So it's just taking into account that actual volume weighted price rather than just, like a
The
moving
low.
average or something like that.
So
So
that's where the most volume comes in near the opening price level.
So during the first half of the day, we can see that
Oh,
on the
half a day.
left-hand side,
Okay.
most of that volume was focused at the low of the day. So, like any other candle, you're going to have the top of the raindrop be your high of the day. The
Yeah.
bottom of your raindrop is the low of the day. And so, what you have here is the VWAP, but then you've got the volume profile actually shown on the chart as well. So you can see that because most of this volume profile was focused at the low of the day, then that is why our volume weighted average price is right around here. Notice on the left-hand side, the volume profile is really, very defined right in the middle of the range here and kind of peaks right here. And that's why you've got your volume weighted average price here. So in this case, rather than your open on the left and your close on the right, like a typical bar chart, you've got your volume weighted average price. So it gives you a little bit of better idea of, the actual economics behind the move rather than, just the open and the close.
Is there an entry or exit on these raindrops that tell you, it's time? Like you have a bullish raindrop. If you saw it around the close like this, is that a signal
No,
or
so
just information?
yeah, this is just information. The reason I say it's
Okay.
a bullish raindrop is just because it's green. The
Okay.
neutral raindrop is going to be blue just because the volume weighted average price on the left and the right are equal. So it's like a true volume weighted doji.
Oh,
And then the bearish raindrop is just when your volume weighted average price on the second half of the candle is lower than the first half. So if you trade bar charts, your opens up here, your closes down here,
right.
it's red.
So let
Here,
me ask you on the neutral, would it be comparable to like an inside day?
Not necessarily an inside
Okay.
day, just really a true equilibrium of both the first and the second half of the day, where volume weighted average price was exactly equal. So buyers and
Okay.
sellers were completely undecided, and the price action was really pretty much equal across the day as far as the total amount of shares traded in volume. These will happen around reversal areas. So, an inside day, you may expect a reversal as well, but this happens a lot less than I would say inside days. And it depends on what chart you're looking at. So for example, Facebook is one that sometimes will fall signal. There's a ton of neutral raindrops that will form. But then if you're looking at SPY or maybe Bitcoin, your blue raindrops form much less frequently, and that's why they have more value. But it's not an end-all be-all. It's just another kind of tool to have in the toolbox. So what I'm going to be going over a little bit is the balloon candle, and you can use the balloon both on a bullish or a bearish setup. So for example, here we're going to go over SPY, and this is what I would say is like a bearish balloon. And what you can see here is you can see the drop, right through this 1.618, which was previous resistance, blew through support here. And you can see during the day, there was almost like a liquidity gap here. And we know that because there was no volume really here. All of the volume was focused at the bottom of the range, showing that anyone that was selling or buying was doing so mostly at the bottom of yesterday's range, showing that sellers were definitely in control. And so, what are we down, like 0.7 this morning? So this was kind of a way to say, okay, there's definitely volume at the lower part of the range. There's volume kind of aggregating there that could possibly be sellers coming in and then buyers maybe trying to buy the dip. But then if we go to the regular candle.
Looks like it filled a gap there on that. Okay. All right.
Yep. And so then this is pre-market.
I wanted to ask you on the previous chart before we had the big candle down, raindrop candle down yesterday. Did the day before tell you something?
This right here, yeah, it showed us that throughout the day, we started with during the first half of the day on the left-hand side, most of the volume was near the top of the range. But you could see during the second half of the day here, most of that volume started to kind of push down, actually price to new lows. And we know that this volume pushed the price down to new lows during the second half of the day because there's no volume profile on the left here. So all of this volume was kind of telling us that sellers were coming into the second half of the period, and then you had your continuation down the next day.
Okay.
This isn't like always going to happen. So for example here, right, we've got a very similar candle, shows the exact same type of setup where most of the volume during the first half of the day is up here. And then, you've got your big selling, creating new lows during the second half. But, we had a nice run up after that. So it's not an end all be all, but it is something that really helps you visualize how volume is flowing. So for example, this is kind of an opposite example of the raindrop, the balloon raindrop on the bullish side, where you've got something like this. You've got a bunch of resistance, and then you've got this balloon kind of forming where you can see a lot of this volume was aggregating above this resistance line. We'll just make this red. And so you can see that this was really showing that buyers did have some conviction here. And generally, if you're going to see a balloon outside of a hard level of resistance, whether that's horizontal resistance, whether that's diagonal resistance, you'll generally get a couple day move after that. So I'm not going to say always, but I've done a lot of research on these, and you're generally, when you have a balloon through resistance, you're going to get a nice gap up. So another example of this was BABA over the last couple weeks. You had really strong resistance here. And then we finally broke through it, and notice how all of that volume was kind of aggregating above the line. And then you had about a 5% move up the next 2 days. So it's just really showing you where that volume is within the range. So if I split the screen on IWM and I go from just a regular raindrop, and then I compare that to a hollow candle the same exact day, you'll see here that when this is the same candle. Let me just highlight this. So this particular candle here is the same on each one. And you can see this candle here with the regular hollow candle, all you can see is a wick above this red line. You can't actually see if buyers were in control, if there was any volume above this line, if this was someone just getting squeezed out of a position and they just had to, do a quick market order to blip the price up. So we don't really know if this is true demand. And from this perspective, it looks like that we closed right at resistance. But if you look at the balloon raindrop, you can see within this wick how much volume was really flowing above this resistance line. So it's really giving you an idea of volume flow and how that
different picture.
Yep, exactly.
All right, interesting.
So that's something that we use a lot. IWM is another example. I mean, if you look at all the broad market indices right now, they're all showing this kind of inverse balloon here, where you're kind of having the opposite effect. But as I mentioned, this would be a lot more this would be more convincing if we were around like a hard level of support. We're kind of just in this area of just a big move up and then a big move down. So I don't think it holds as much weight as if you're looking at it through breaking down through support or resistance.
Okay, well, 162 was major resistance. We broke out above it, and now we're back to it. Is there anything in the raindrops that would tell you that breakout, you should be suspect of the breakout in the next few candles after the breakout? Is that normal action after a breakout to get those raindrops? After the big up day, you had 3 raindrops before the sell-off. Is that give you any kind of market tell that be careful of that up day?
In this particular case, not really, but
Okay.
this is one of those things where you want to use this in conjunction with other levels. So this particular raindrop chart isn't showing us a lot. Now,
Yeah.
if we had a blue raindrop right here, that would have been a good example of maybe we're topping out. Because if we go to an example of like Caterpillar, for example, this is one that really moves very strongly with blue raindrops. And this is one of like the poster childs of raindrop reversals on the blues. So if I quickly go through this, you'll see anytime there is a blue raindrop, and they don't happen very often, it will generally signal either a reversal or kind of a point where price is kind of topped out, if you will. So I'm just highlighting all these different blue raindrops, and you'll see that they form right near the top and the bottom of these big waves that we're kind of seeing here. And so we recently had a blue raindrop here, which occurred about a month after our previous one. And so now we're kind of starting that next move down. We'll just have to see if this is actually a precursor to a bigger move down as well.
Okay.
But you can see here, anytime the blue raindrop, you've got a pretty big move to the downside. You've got a move here, and then you've got some kind of consolidation and just distribution before the move down. And then you've got these waves that really are defined solely almost by these blue raindrops. And so what you can do here is, let's say that you wanted to see what the return for a blue raindrop is on a particular stock. You can go in and just back test it. So you go to the raindrop here. Let's go to the daily.
I have a question from one of our attendees. Wants to know, when did they turn that color, before or after the move?
They turn that color at the end of the day. So generally what you want to do is you want to start looking at these candles about 20 minutes before they close, because they're constantly still forming throughout the day. So a lot of the time, let's say this is one I did on SQ. I was watching SQ. They had a balloon breakout here right around this area. And you can see that, if you were only solely looking at the daily, this is kind of information after the fact. It's after the day's been done. You can't really make a move. So you want to watch these raindrops form, like I said, about 20 minutes before the close, because before 20 minutes before the close, unless just some big chunk of volume comes in, you're going to get a general idea of how this candle is setting up into the next day. And, sometimes I'll wait 5 minutes before the close just so I know, this is pretty much what we're going to close as. And so, for example, SQ, I saw this. Towards the end of the day, I was like, all right, balloon raindrops forming, and I entered the $70 calls a couple weeks ago. And then you had your nice move up. And that was solely based on this raindrop because it was showing us that, it was kind of aggregating. And the reason why we call it a balloon is because if it's like a hot air balloon. If you put enough hot air in the balloon, it's going to cause the balloon to rise. And that heat rising is what's causing the balloon to go up. You can see here how the demand is essentially rising to the top of this range, aggregating at the top, and then you've got your continuation up. So that's the way I generally will do it because that's a great point, right? We've got this information generally at the end of the day where you can't make a trade anymore. So you really want to look at these right before close. This is a really cool example of SQ in a blue raindrop. So Dale, you asked, what would be something that I would look for near the top of the range or top of the move? This would have been exactly what I wanted to see on IWM, right? So we had the blue raindrop form right at the top of this move up. You've got your move down, and then I think we're even gapping down again today in the 65s. So this was kind of your indication that things were starting to kind of reverse. Notice here you had two blue raindrops about 3 days before your next move up. You had a blue raindrop form here, and then you had a nice rally up from about 56 to the top to 64 within about a week and a half. So SQ is a good one actually to check out for blue raindrops. And so what you can do without having to go and look at every single blue raindrop, you just go here to raindrop blue doji, and we're going to test this and see, after 30 candles, what's the average, or let's do 15 candles, what's the average return? And then we can actually go and test that out and see every time a blue raindrop is formed, what is the return on the chart? And so here you can see 27 positions have been analyzed over 4 years of data, which is about 1,015 candles, and the mean trade return is 3.9%. You can also see a lot more data here. So you can see the net profit, you can see the asset performance, you can see this particular blue raindrop did not beat just buy and hold. And so you can see if your strategy is actually going to beat just buying and holding the stock from that particular period that you're testing. So in this case, without me having to go and measure anything, we've got our entry here. This is the blue raindrop, and the system said, all right, after 15 candles, 12.92% return. Same thing here, blue raindrop within 15 candles, 7.19% return. And then, this doesn't mean that it's in this particular chart, it means that the blue raindrop is generally going to return positive rather than negative. But there's also stocks that will have more of a negative kind of bias whenever you've got a blue raindrop forming.
Does that mainly have to do with the general trend of the market?
So the blue raindrops what do you mean by that?
Well, you say there's some examples where it means it's bullish, and there's some examples where it means it's bearish. And
I think
you probably have more when the general market's going up. You probably have more of the bullish outcomes, right? And more of the bearish.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Most of the time, yeah. A lot of the time, it depends on how liquid the stock is, right? So. Yeah. Sometimes if you have a really illiquid stock, you may have 6 blue raindrops in a row, which at that point makes the raindrop not significant at all. There's other times where you have like Bitcoin where it will actually be kind of almost a confirmation of the next leg in the trend. So for example, here you can see if we go and back test the blue raindrop, see on chart, you'll see here, generally, these were forming at the stair step. So right here, you've got a blue raindrop forming right around the SMA 20, and then you've got your move up within about 15 days, 36%. Notice then we start to kind of form a base here. You've got your next blue raindrop forming, and then you've got a 48% move up. Then you've got your next blue raindrop here. You've got a little more base forming, and then you've got your next leg up. And
so
then,
when you use these for signals, does it define your risk? And does it also help you with what the magnitude of the move, if the signal is correct, would be?
No, I
Or
mean
that's something you just have to do
this is
if,
something that I would use in conjunction with probably 3 or 4 other things. It's not that I just look
okay,
at a blue raindrop and I'm like, all right, mortgage the house on this. It's definitely not any type
okay,
of thing like that. It's more of a way to say, okay, this is something that I didn't see on the hollow candle. Let me switch over to the
right,
raindrop and see if there's something that I'm not seeing.
okay,
Notice here how we didn't have a blue raindrop for quite some time when we were kind of just in the doldrums at the top here. And then we
yeah,
had a blue raindrop form, and then we started our first leg down. And so there are times where it's not going to have a very high R squared to the move. It's not going to have, it's not going to be that correlated. But sometimes you can have some very interesting correlated moves, especially with like Caterpillar, as I mentioned. It really just depends on the personality of the stock. It's no different than if you were using the MACD. The MACD sometimes is going to signal really well on one stock, and then it may not really tell you much at all on the other stock because each stock really has its own personality at the end of the day.
okay. Very interesting invention. Who came up with it?
Our CTO and our co-founder Russ,
Okay, Rusted.
he
Okay,
randomly one day last October, almost a year ago, from a little earlier than a year ago, just kind of sent a Google Doc and was like, "Yeah, I came up with this last night," and we're like, "Oh, that's weird." And then we
cool.
started to get some feedback on it, and people started to really kind of like the idea of being able to see how the volume is flowing. And then we released it and got a lot of good feedback. And now we're
Okay.
just trying to continue to do research and see what how they can be used most efficiently.
All right. Well, do you have a place for people to go to, Jake, for them to consider giving it a roll?
Yes, absolutely. You can go to trendspire.com, and we actually extended our Cyber Monday deal for an extra day. So you can get up to 40% off on an annual subscription, 25% off on a monthly subscription. So if you guys want to try it out, we have a free trial up to 7 days. If you need more time, we can always extend that for another 7 days too. So we definitely want people to try it out and make sure that it's a right fit for their particular strategy and technical analysis. And, we hope it's something that can add value to your current process.
Okay. And what's regular retail without promos on this per
Regular
month?
retail is going to go anywhere from about $15 a month. You can see here.
Okay.
Of course, we've got the Black Friday in here too, but you can see these are some of the general prices here. So instead of 132, you're actually going to pay only $79.20 for the standard plan. Instead of 554 for the master, you're going to pay, instead of 924 for the master yearly, you're going to only pay 554.40. So it's a pretty good discount, and we really want people to kind of come in and see if it's something that works for them. It's not your typical kind of charting platform. There's a lot of different features, so it's going to take you a little time to dive in, and that's why I want to extend that trial if you need the time.
Okay. And I believe, Jake, you also have get-togethers every week for people to collaborate and talk about things, right?
We do, and thank you for jumping on a couple weeks back as well. We do have a Sunday chart show, and you can come on and just listen to kind of what we're talking about. It's generally just the broad markets into the next week. Maybe look at a couple other stocks or other requests that people have. You can easily go on the chat and just say, hey, what is Roku's blue raindrop, or what does Roku's raindrop look like today? Is it a blue raindrop? Whatever. We're happy to take requests, all that good stuff. It's really there to, one, show more about how the platform works in real time, and then two, provide some information into the next week. It's not advice or anything like that. It's just kind of myself and one of our guests going over the markets and just talking charts.
Okay, Jake. Well, thank you and everyone. Very interesting software that they've come up with at Transpire. And Merry Christmas to you and Russ and the whole crew, and Happy New Year, and much success with breaking new ground in technical analysis, Jake.
Well, thank you so much. I always appreciate you having me on, and I hope you have a great holiday as well as everyone listening in. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to reach out. hello@trendspider.com or on our Twitter @trendspider.
Thank you, Jake. Good hunting, buddy.
Thank you. Have a great day and a great week.
All right, adios. So everyone, that's turnaround Tuesday. S&Ps are underneath the throwover line. Oil is resisting this weakness, so I still think there's going to be a chance to get short the oil. And dollar is still weak. So what happened yesterday, we're getting pretty good follow through. So have a great day the rest of the day. Remember our Cyber Week special, and we'll see everyone tomorrow. Don't just count your pips, people. Count your blessings and try and be one for others. Adios.